If you sat down with me and asked, Christian, how can I double my business or become a top producer in the real estate industry, this is the framework that I would walk through with you in order to take you from where you're at right now to adding multiple six figures to your business. Now, this is a call I do with my agents all the time, and it is honestly the same framework that I personally used to do over $1.1 million in GCI in just my first 2 years in the business. And we take agents on our team all the time from their first six figures to multiple using the same framework. So I'm gonna walk through this with you as if we are having a one-on-one coaching call. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian Stubbs. I'm a team leader and owner of Onyx Homes. And this is the framework I use to help coach my agents up. So let's dive right into it. Now, let me give a few mindset alignments before we get into this. Let me frame this conversation so that you can actually go in and implement this. By the way, you might actually want to take notes of your own during this video, pause, screenshots, the whole 9 yards. Now, the first thing I want to do is frame this conversation. There is very little to do right here with what we're going to talk about with mindset, outside of the main thing that you have to actually be serious about doing this. There's not like affirmations or anything like that we're going to talk about this. This is very tactical, what actually to do. The reason I say it's not mindset is because if you are serious about taking your business from 100,000 to 500,000, you need to actually mean that. You don't just want to be like, oh, it would be cool, because then you will not do the work. Let's just say that I am absolutely taking my business from here to here, from A to Z, and I need to know the step-by-step of exactly how to get there. That's why we're not going to be talking about mindset so much. That from a base level is important to be successful. But for this video, we're going to be talking tactics. So that's kind of point number one. And point number two, this is the overarching theme. It comes down to how you actually spend your time. Now, I'm going to break this down into the first major chunk here, which is why this actually matters. When I was early on in my career, I thought I could just outwork all the competition. I could work harder, I could work more, I could work whatever, and I could just blow past everybody else. And that worked to some extent, but once I got to the $300,000 or $400,000 a year mark, I was not able to break through that ceiling because of one major reason, and it was my time. I was constrained by my own personal time. This is the framework we're going to talk through so you can break through that ceiling, or if you're not there yet, so you don't even have that ceiling there when you approach it. Now, let's talk about first things first is you have to know the work that is required for you to actually hit your goal. So, because we don't have your stats for this, you're going to be able to color this in with your own information that you know. I'm going to give you two different ways to figure out how much work is going to get you to your goal, right? So the first way we're going to talk about this is just some benchmarks. Now, if you are new to my channel, you may or may not be doing all the things that I recommend, which is using a CRM, tracking everything. I know not all real estate agents do this, so I'm just going to give you some benchmarks or some rule of thumbs in the first place. The one thing you really want to look at is your consults. Now, what is a consult? Listing presentation or buyer strategy session or buyer's consultation, whatever you call them. Those are the two things that I would consider to be consults. Now, if you are a good real estate agent, you should be getting about 50% of your consults should turn into signed agreements. Now, again, these are listing agreements, buyer agreements, whatever. We all know that not all of those agreements will turn into an actual transaction. Not every listing closes, not every buyer agreement turns into a closed transaction. And all of the data that I have with my company is that if you blend listings and buyer agreements together, about 50% of those will turn into a closed deal, right? So let's just use that. So this basically tells us 1 of 4 consults equals a deal, right? And this is specific for my market. If you want to tell me yours is different, that's totally fine, but you should probably track your own data so that you can use this. But I'm sharing with you benchmarks about what I know to be true with my company. We've sold almost 1,000 homes. This is some pretty serious real data. Now, another way you can do this is here are some real numbers from my team. So yes, this is all true, right? This is all true over here. But here are some real numbers. So it takes about, this is for a higher producing agent. So if you're watching this video, you're probably already a successful agent. You're doing $100,000, $200,000 in GCI or something in that regard. And what I have learned is that one of about 20 leads turns into a deal, right? That is a 5% conversion rate. CVR stands for conversion rate. So what does that mean? Well, we need to kind of backdoor how you get to your goal, right? That was the whole point here. So if we take both of these different angles, I don't know why I drew that line. So if we take both of these different angles, all right, so let's just say you want to do $500,000 in GCI. And let's just say for my market, let's say your average commission is $20,000. Okay, cool. So that means you need to do 500,000 divided by 20,000 is 20, is that right? 25 deals. Cool. So 2 deals per month, basically. So an easy way you can look at that is if we go from this first route over here, we could say, okay, if 4 consults equals 1 deal, and if I want to do 25 deals times 4 consults, that means I need to do 100 consults. Cool. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And if I have 50 working weeks, now to get even further here, let's just say there's 52 weeks in a year. Let's say you do 2 for vacation, and then you do 2 for holiday. So that leaves us with 48 working weeks, WW, working weeks. So now we take the 100 consults. Oops. All right, so now we take the 100 consults divided by 48 working weeks. So we do 100 divided by 48 is 2.1. So let's just call this equals 2, right? You would actually be short of your goal here. So let's just say 2.1 is the actual number. Okay. So that means you need 2.1 consults every single week. Meaning if you average this every single week, you average out to 2.1. Ideally shoot for 3. And if you get 2 one week and 3 week the other, you'll be 2.5. There you go. So that is how we would work from there. Now, if you did it this other way, 5% conversion rate, and both of these things are true, by the way, and these are also both assuming that you don't have your own individual numbers. Because if you're an agent on my team, we would know these numbers. So we would not be guessing at 50%. Now, these are very easy, clear benchmarks based on tons and tons and tons of data. So just use those benchmarks if you don't have. But if you do have your own data, you can plug in your numbers. Now, we also just said a 5% conversion rate, and we need to get to 25 deals. So if we want to do that, divided by 0.0. So if we take this and we do 25, this is deals, divided by 5% conversion, that equals 500 leads. Now, the reason this is, I'll say, not quite as accurate, it gives you a very good idea. This isn't quite as accurate because this is like, you will do 25 deals from the 500 leads you actually generated this year. That assumes you have 0 database to work off of, 0 whatever. I think that's the right way to do it, is not to bank on your past clients and referrals, because we all know the agents who just sit back and wait for past clients and referrals year after year after year. They sit there and complain, oh, my database is just, they're old, they're not moving, they're whatever. It's just an excuse. So if we set up our business that we are going to make this happen on purpose versus on accident, let's just generate the 500 leads. And again, if we have 48 working weeks, we would divide the 500 by 48 working weeks, and we're going to get something like, what is this, 10 leads a week? So 500 divided by 48 is going to be 11 leads per week. And if you did that every single week, so if you generated 11 leads and you got 2 consults every single week, you're going to be making $500,000. And I would honestly say, on a bare minimum, you would be making that. And this is based on average conversion ratios. So that's kind of first thing, number one. Now, the second thing is, this is going to tell, so the first thing we just did here is how much work. Now, if you're looking at this and you're like, well, Christian, that's a lot of leads, and that's a lot, like 2 consults every single week. That's a lot. It's like, well, yeah, $500,000 is a lot. If you thought this would be easy, you're probably in the wrong business, I would imagine. If someone is going to say, hey, I'll pay you $42,000 a month, and your job is to do 2 consults a week, you'd probably just do it, right? The problem is we're taking on all the risk as the salespeople, right? So that's just how it works. So we just answered the question, how much work is this actually going to take? Now, number 2 is we're going to talk about what is your lead pillar. So how are you going to get these leads? So I'll put A here, is you should have 1 pillar of what I call self-gen leads. So this could be open houses, this could be cold calling, this could be door knocking, this could be whatever. but something you do every single week to generate inbound new leads. The second thing you should do, and this is a pro tip, is team leads. If you are not on a team that provides leads, if your company does not provide you leads, I'm sorry, but that is also your choice. I highly encourage our agents on our team to get 5 leads per week just from the team alone, meaning you're not so dependent on your own prospecting. Now, the reason it's so important to do this regardless of skill level is number C, or letter C, is to get referrals from all leads. So you ask, who do you know that's moving next? Not do you know anybody, it's who do you know that is moving next, or who do you know that would see value in this thing? The minute somebody tells you, hey, you know, Christian, we decided we're not going to move this year, we're going to do it next year. Be like, hey, you know what? Totally understand. By the way, what changes next year? All the sales things. Once you've decided that they are for sure going to move next year, you just say, hey, I'm going to have a lot of extra free time since you guys aren't moving right now anymore. We're not going to be working every day. Which one of your friends or family do you know that's moving next that could benefit from my help? And then get a name and number. And if they give you somebody, say, hey, cool, anybody else? And then maybe you can get 2 referrals from somebody. So this is the 3 different pillars everybody should have. Minimum of these 2 is your 1 pillar. So like, let's say you do open houses and you ask for referrals. Well, here's the reality. If you do open houses for your lead pillar, what do you do all week long, right? You work Monday, you work 5, let's say at least days a week. So you've got 3 days during the week that you're not doing open houses. What are you doing during that time? If you have a lead source like that, I highly encourage you to add in something that adds to it. I've done tons of different videos, and that's not going to cover too much detail. Now, by the way, if you like this tactical advice and you want more live training, I'm doing live workshops inside of our free community, start to finish in real estate. So if you want to get inside of that community, you get access to a lot of different stuff. 1, I'm doing live Q&A workshops after a training in the community on the calendar, so you can join that. Number 2 is you also get access to our entire sales masterclass. So if you're wondering how we have done almost 1,000 transactions for almost 900 million in volume in just the first 6 years in the business, that entire sales masterclass is in there as well too. Not to mention, you get access to 2,200 other agents that are like-minded like you wanting to grow. So link is going to be in the description down below if you want to join. I'll see you in there, and let's get back into the video. All right, so once you do this, right, this is number 1 is how much work. Number 2 is where are the leads coming from? Really from here, it's just do it, right? Until you get to a certain point, which that mark usually is about the $200,000 mark, where you can just do the work and you'll get to that 20 grand a month number as far as GCI coming in. Now, 3 that's on here is really once you start scaling up above that $200,000 mark. And this is where you need to protect your time. This is the most valuable asset you have as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and especially as a high producing real estate agent. You have to protect your time. And you want to be spending 80% of your time on IPAs. You'll remember it. Hold on a second. This is income producing activities. IPAs. So these are the activities that lead to you making more money, and you need to be spending at least 80% of your time doing these things. The other 20% can be the administrative stuff, the stuff that just the blocking and tackling, the things you have to do. 80% of it needs to be income producing. Okay? One thing that agents have to understand as they become more and more successful is that busy does not equal productive. This was a block wall that I had to break through when I was early on in my career. I was working 100 hours a week, doing everything possible and spending a ton of time. I was a salesperson basically from 8 to 8. And then in the mornings before 8 o'clock, before I could start calling people, I was doing administrative work. And then in the evenings after 8 o'clock, when I couldn't call people anymore, I was back to doing administrative work until I really honestly just fried for the day, go home, sleep, wake up, do it again. And that got me to $300,000 in GCI or so, but it was not going to get me to that next level. So what did I do? Well, number 1 is I hired an assistant. Now, this is not what I would recommend doing. This is what I actually did. So I hired an assistant and I offloaded 40 hours a week of nonsense, of just administrative crap off of my plate and gave it to her. And she did all of it better than I was because I was fried. And what I did was I added this much time back into sales. And then guess what happened? Sales went up. Right? Go figure. Spend more time on sales, sales went up. The second thing that I did was I hired an in-house transaction coordinator. This is why we have in-house TCs with our team, so that our agents can focus on doing the next deal instead of managing the current deal that they're in escrow with. Again, this went back into sales, time went back into sales, and sales increased yet again. And then the third thing I did was I hired a marketing person. Shout out to Carly. I spelled marketing wrong? Marketing person. And then again, sales increased. Now, at this point, I actually decided to get completely out of production. But if I would have continued, and again, this is not what I'd recommend doing, my next thing was a driver. I was actually a complete, actual waste of my time to drive myself in the car, which sounds insane. But this is very, very true. Mind you, I was doing about 780K GCI in my second year, right? My second full year in the business, and I was on pace to probably do 1.5 million the next year. So like we're talking obviously large numbers. And this wasn't all for me. We did have a team of other agents as well too. But I was a very large percentage of the revenue, let's just call it like that. So I would have kept doing this. Now, that's not my advice. What I would recommend doing nowadays, what I advise all of our agents to do is do what is called a production partner first. Production partner is a salesperson that is tied. You guys are married. So their deals are your deals, and your deals are their deals. I'm not going to go too much in detail here. This is the next thing, but the whole concept here is you have to protect your time. You have to protect your time so that you can focus on what you do best, right? Your highest and best use. Habu, highest and best use of time. Your highest and best use of time is going to be on the three C's. The first one is conversations. You should be spending a tremendous amount of your time having conversations with new clients, conversations with existing clients, getting referrals, and just moving people down the pipeline. The second thing you should be focused on are consults. Remember that, for example, that 4 per week number that leads to 500K in GCI, right? That's what we should be focusing on. You should be doing whatever the number of consults you need to do to hit your goals. That should be the second thing. The third thing is contracts. Now, big caveat here. I wanted these to be 3 C's. This is negotiating, not writing the contracts. Your production partner should be writing the contracts. Your transaction coordinator should be doing all of the back end of any deals. I used to be able to hand a napkin to my transaction coordinator and the deal would happen without any other input from me other than negotiating. So you want to make sure that you are able to focus on these 3 things. This is how you are going to be able to protect your time. Now, as you scale up, you're going to need more and more help, meaning you're going to need to delegate. And it's going to be hard, and you're going to need to do it anyway. And this is why getting around other people that are successful is incredibly important. I've talked with an agent on my team who, when we first started the idea of doing a production partner, they listened to the playbook about 80% of the way, and then they wanted to recreate the wheel for the other 20%. Well, here we are about a year later, and we're going from 500,000 in GCI to over $1 million in GCI. And now that last 20% is causing big problems right now, so we're having to restructure. So when you have a proven process that works, my advice to you is if you trust the person you're taking the advice from, just take it all the way. I just got off a coaching call with somebody who has done, their team is 3 times the size of ours. And I had a hypothesis of what I thought was the right thing to do for a particular position. We're hiring a sales manager. And I wrote everything out that I thought, and I was just, hey, look at this and tell me if I'm wrong. And he looked at it and he was like, hey, this last thing on here, just cross that off. This sales manager should not be focusing on this thing at all. Cross it off. You want them focused on the thing that is the most important for a sales manager, that is driving revenue, driving sales and closings, not recruiting, for example. So you want to laser in the focus. So now I can go, I trust this guy. I'm going to take his advice. I'm going to implement it. I advise you do the same thing if you trust the person you're taking advice from. Now, obviously, you're watching a video here. If you're listening to my advice, I don't have context on you or your business. So if you want to join the community and ask a question there, I will personally respond. So you can jump in there. So anyway, conversations, consults, and contracts, those are the 3 things you should be filling your time with. Now, okay, so let's tie this thing together. Number 1 is you need to know how much you need to do. Now, my advice for you here is you need to have a weekly scorecard. If you want an example, it should look something like this. You should have your KPIs, which are your key performance indicator. These are the most important metrics in your business. And then you should have weeks. So you should do this by the quarter. And there are roughly 13 weeks in any given quarter, right? So you would fill out a spreadsheet that looks basically like this. I would just do it. We ran our whole business like this for years on Excel. You get the point. I don't need to write this whole thing out. And then you have your 5 major KPIs. You get the point. So this would be like so leads. How many leads do you get each week? How many consults did you get each week? How many convos did you have, right? Whatever your numbers actually are. How many agreements, right? Maybe if you're doing content, how many posts did you, whatever your pillars are. So, and then you come on here and you just simply fill this in every week. Okay, I had 12 leads this week. I did 5 consults. I had 35 convos. I got 4 agreements signed for my 5 consults, but I didn't post at all. It's like, okay, cool. Well, guess what? We hit our goal here. 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 And we did not hit our goal here. Okay, cool. Now what happens? Next week, you come on here, you do it again. You say, hey, I generated 5 leads. I had 1 consult. I only had 12 conversations. I got 1 agreement signed, and I posted 5 times. And it's like, okay, well, did we do what we were supposed to do? We hit our number of posts, but we did not hit any of these things here. And then guess what? You do it again the next week. I did 11 of these. I did my 4 consults. I did 25 conversations. I got my 2 agreements, and I posted 6 times here. Fantastic. Now we've got yes, 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 and yes. Cool. Another good week. And then you just do that every single week for the rest of your life. Very simple, very easy. This is how we've grown our business from $2 million in GCI to last year. This is 2022 to in 2025. We did $6.5 million here. So we 3x the business and 5x profit by doing this every single week for our entire lives. I have a document that has every quarter for the last 3.5 years of just measuring the KPIs, the most important numbers in the business, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. So you know how much work you need to do, and then you have this is accountability. And as you add team members, you can hold them accountable to doing the KPIs they need to do. So then the second thing is we have, I guess this really is the second thing here. So your accountability is the second thing of just actually doing what you need to do. And then from there, you need to protect time. Now, one thing you will say, here's a literal red flag, is that if you notice there's a lot more of these orange things or these reds coming up, and there's not nearly as many greens, meaning you're missing weeks more than you're making them, then you need to look at, why am I not doing that? Is it because you don't have time, or is it just because you have the time, you're just not doing what you need to do? Then you can go on and say, hey, I need to focus more of my time on income producing activities. Maybe that means you are ready to bring on an assistant. Maybe that means you need a second production partner, or you need to bring on your first production partner. But whatever it is likely because you are not protecting your time, you're not spending it correctly. So as always, I hope this was valuable. If it was, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.